today we'll be focusing on intercropping and care of seeding before we get to a final system and also put it to general use in your garden. We'd like to thank our major sponsors for this series of episodes. They are the Digital Foundation, Agri, Evergrow Garden Center, and Skyfall events that provided this amazing. I want to sit back, relax, put it to use. Thank you.
Yes, once again, I must say, pleasant good morning, one and all, farmers, householders, students, children, parents, grandparents. Welcome to another in the series of Say Yes to Fresh Backyard Garden Style. And we are here this morning with two very, very important guests, one on the left and one on the right. We have Jordan Young. He's a young man that we are encouraging to participate and get involved in doing something at home while he's on holiday. And this is something that we're encouraging all the parents to do with their students, children, and anyone else that is around the house, not doing anything much. But I have a very, very special guest here, our plant health and food safety officer. This young man is a man with vision, with knowledge, with understanding, and will give us the do's and the don'ts. This is Mr. Earl Watkins. He's a very knowledgeable person, and we'll be having discussion in relation to the whole food health and food security and the whole safety. So we're going to also go through how do we intercrop our crops, crops that you can use to as a repellent for other crops. Jordan will be showing us how we can actually plant into a container. And we are not going to only plant one crop, but he's also going to intercrop the callaloo with the scallion in the container. So I just want you all to be attentive, because remember, we're going to ask a few questions, and persons who are able to answer these questions, we will be having some spot prizes. Okay, so I want you to be involved. We're going to have our question and answer section. So persons, stay tuned with your questions, and we will see how best we can answer them. If we are unable to answer it now, then we will forward the information to you. All right, so I'm asking that we all participate and see how much we can learn. All right, Mr. Watkins, it's good to have you. Mr. Young, it's good to have you on set with me this morning, and we are looking forward to have a very fruitful discussion and a very active day. All right, thank you much. What we have to focus on though, in relation to the land space that we have, and a lot of building is going up, and persons are buying a lot of townhouses. But the thing is that with these townhouses, they have minimal space. So we want to put a lot of emphasis on how persons can create their own green space. Because right, if you realize the time is getting extremely hot, and I think it have a lot to do with the lack of greening that we have. So we want to put some emphasis on especially containerized gardening, right? With vertical gardening, because these are activities that will enhance, the whole environment, the sustainability of the whole environment. And the environment is an issue that we have to talk about more and more, and see how best we can garner to ensure that the environment will sustain itself and sustain us in the long term.
And one of the other thing with plants again, you mentioned the importance of the whole garden. The other thing with plants again, plants help to remove some amount of carbon dioxide, but the process helping it whole photosynthesis. So that removes some of the carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas and can build up in the environment. So it helps to take out that and contribute oxygen, which help us, to breathe properly and feel that nice.
So when we get back, come back and say we'll be talking about the whole plants and the plant health and safety. All right. So viewers, enjoy, learn as much as you can, and keep on putting your pen and paper close by because remember we are going to have question and answers. All right. Good morning, one and all farmers, householders, backyard gardeners, youths. And today is a very special day because I have with me a young man, Jordan Young. And they're now in the summer program, they're in the summer, so they don't really have much to do at home, but we want the youths to be incorporated in some of the backyard activities that they can participate in while they're at home. Today we're dealing with transplanting, intercropping of vegetable seedlings. And Jordan is going to give me some guidance in relation to some of the things that we are going to do. I must say it is another of the great series, Say Yes to Fresh Backyard Garden Style, and of which we know Jordan is at home and he will now be involved in some gardening at home. All right. Today is very important in the sense that we are putting some emphasis on grow what we eat and eat what we grow, and we have gone through the whole concept of sowing of seeds and seedling production. We have also had discussion in relation to land preparation and how to do the necessaries for us to get maximum production from whatever we're doing. As you have seen, we did also drip, where we do a mini drip irrigation system, and all of these measures are necessary for you to get maximum production from whatever crop you're going to plant. Now, a person with a small space, they would want to plant everything in that small space. But Jordan, what you and I are going to do today, we're going to show persons that although you have a small space, you can intercrop that small space with several different types of plants. So we're going to establish cabbage, intercrop with scallion. If we had a pop choy, would have also incorporate the pop choy with the cabbage. All right. But before we actually can sow, before we can actually take from the seedlings, the seed tray, we stated before that we have to ensure that we moist the tray, so when we are taking out the seedlings, they can come out quite easily. So help me out with the can, Jordan. So you're going to gently water the seedlings in the tray so that we can extract them quite easily from the tray. Okay, what we have here, we have some cabbage, callaloo, cucumbers, scallion, corn. But there's something we must also explain. When you want to start off with your seedlings, you need good quality seedlings. Jordan, if you look at these, first thing, we said that when you're sowing your seeds, you should sow one seed per cell, and that is these little space here. All right. But what we realize is that the person who had sown these had sown up to 4 seeds in one cell. That also make the
the quality of the seedlings become a bit more inferior, in the sense that the 4 plants will have to compete for the nutrients within that one cell. So you will not get healthy and vigorous plant. But there's another thing you must look at. If you look at the seedling itself, it shows that this tomato plant is a very whole seedling, because you actually can see feeder roots coming out from out of the medium itself. So when you look, you see root, it is rooting coming right up. We would not recommend for you to use seedlings like this. And another thing is that if you have good quality seedlings, we don't advise you to take these seedlings and place in the same space where you have those. Now, let us look at good quality seedlings. That is a tomato plant. And if you look now, we have one tomato plant in this cell. And if you look, this plant is about 3 weeks. All right, roughly 3 weeks. And if you look at how vigorous this plant looks, if you look at the rooting, if you look at the stem, look at the leaves, this is a very healthy plant. And the thing about it, once you plant seedlings at this stage, you will get far more vigorous fruiting, flowering. The plant will be far more healthier and can resist some of the pests and disease that will normally affect it than when you get an old seedling that is overgrown. Okay, all right. But before we actually do the individual cells, what we're going to do is that we have prepared our beds, our mounds for planting. So what we're going to actually do now is that we're going to plant our cabbage. All right, Jordan, what I would want you to do for me is to drop out a seedling in the space. So remember, see, once you wet it, it is much easier to take out. And you're going to place it where you see the emittance, these nodes. They were a foot apart. You can put it there, because the thing is that with cabbage, the wider you plant it, is the bigger it may get. Right? For a person with a 2-pound cabbage, a foot or 18 inches is ideal. 2 pounds, 3 pounds, you can get weight from that. All right? So I'm going to ask you to just drop out, and then we will do some planting from that. I can go in on the bed. Walk in on the space here, so. You can just walk inside of the row. So for every node, you put a plant. That means you're sure the water is there. What we actually do before we started planting, because we have the drip system in place, we actually turn on the drip so that the area that we're actually going to plant start to become moist, so that when we plant, the plant will be able to garner the water from the area immediately. Another row. All right, Jordan, good man, good. We're not going to have to plant it. Now, what we had said earlier on is that if we had the pop char, we would actually plant the pop char on the mounds and then put the cabbage in the furrow. But because we don't have any pop char, we are going to incorporate now with the scallion. But we're actually going to plant out first, and then we can show how they can prepare the scallion for planting. Okay? All right, so you have a fork. I'm going to show you how to plant one. You plant one row, I will plant the other row. All right? So remember, you look at where the drips are. You're not going to plant immediately on top of the drip. You're going to go below it a little, cover. You see where the soil stops? That is how far the seedling is supposed to go inside the soil. So you should not have any soil coming up on the stem here. what that will do, it will cause either damping off to take place, where when you start to give it some water or the drip is dripping for a while, the stem becomes a bit soggy and soft, and then it starts to die back. All right, so you don't want to, you want to ensure that it stays within the medium. Okay, so Jordan, so you're going to plant this row. So we do one, all right, and I will do the other row. Or you want to do the top row? So you plant that row, I'll plant this row. And this is something that we want to encourage at home. The children are home now in the summer. This will be a good form of practical practice or exercise for them, you know. So they will learn to appreciate, because of one thing, you know, anytime a man work in a space and him say his labor, you know, one of the greatest thing is for him to eat from his labor, you know. And I think the children would really appreciate the fact that they actually plant these things and literally see it grow, you know. So before school will resume, some of these crops that we're going to plant, they'll be able to reap from it for the kitchen. So what we're going to do now, Jordan, we're going to actually prepare the scallion to show how they can use the scallion to intercrop with the cabbage. The scallion is also used as a repellent for some, and I want to make it clear, for some insect, not all insects, because just like how other plants are affected by certain pest and disease, the scallion will also be affected by certain pest or certain disease. So it is not a natural repellent for all insects or pests. Okay, so we're going to show how persons can prepare the scallion to intercrop with the cabbage. A lot of persons normally go to the market. You know, your mommy use scallion and when she sees the meat and stuff like that. Alright? But a lot of persons normally go to the market, they buy the scallion, and normally when they buy the scallion, they normally cut off the person who sells the scallion normally cut off the root off of the scallion. But we're going to show persons how they can prepare planting materials from these. So this plant is going to eventually give us 4 different plants. All right, so I want you to hold this for me. We get the machete. I have a machete here. We're going to trim the root of the scallion. Do you see? Yeah, cut it. Just cut off the roots. That much too big for you, bud. Alright, let me see. Hold this. Let me show you. You would normally hold it a bit close, like that. If you don't have a knife, and just turn it. Okay? So you just hold it close and turn. Alright? So I'm going to give you one for cut now. So here you are. Turn. Yes, do it again. All right. You break. So you see we had one plant that they would normally take to the kitchen and cook from, and we end up with 4 different plants. So what we're going to do now is that you're going to incorporate. So we come, Jordan, hold this. You look for the middle, put it in the middle. Don't put it straight up in the air like this. You put it to slant a little. Once you allow it to slant and so it catch root, the plant come far more vigorous. Okay, so we go to do that. All right, your time now. So you're going to plant. Yes, and slant it. Bring the machete. Put it this side. And cover and press. Same thing again. And press. The same thing here. Yeah. Press. And you come down here. Alright, and press. Okay, now as I said, if we had the pop char now, you would have 3 crops within the same space, where you would have the pop char, scallion, cabbage, and that would the pop char would be reaped out within 6 weeks. Within 8 weeks, you will find you start to have scallion that you can reap from. Now we have to put a lot of emphasis on the whole pest and disease management, and we have a thing that we call border crops that would normally plant around the perimeter of the land. All right, and what this crop does, it allows the insects like the aphids that would normally affect some of these crops. The aphids will go directly to the corn. So what we actually do, we would normally plant the corn, come Janet, right around the perimeter. So you prepare the place, you put in your corn. So you're going to plant the corn right around the perimeter of the land or the area that you're planting, so that if you have any aphids coming in, they will go directly to the corn before they actually goes into the field where you have your other crops. And when you plant, you ensure that you pressed on the root surface. And remember, you don't go above the potting mix. So you plant your corn into like some basins. You see how them shape? Like basins. And what will happen is that the drip will just drip at the root and sustain the amount of moisture that the plant will need. Alright, we have a double bed now. So you see, from the little space, you'll have a little of everything that can feed the family. So you drop out the color just the same. But we're not going to drop them a foot apart, we're going to drop them 2 feet apart. So at every other node or emittance, you will drop out a color. And what you could do, you could stagger. So you plant one there, then you plant another here, one there, another here. So you stagger it. And if you notice, remember how wet it, so you saw he's there come out of the tree. And if you look, you'll see that the drip was on and there's some moisture literally at the area that we're going to plant. So this is what a family can do together. Father and son, son and daughter. Everybody can get involved and play their part, you know. And that is why we're encouraging persons to get involved in some level of agriculture activity at home, at least during this time. And the thing about it, after you do all of this work, when your mommy want to cook some callaloo, you know, Jordan, she says, Jordan, walk out to my callaloo outside, man. That's all. Yeah. And you're sure you're eating what you actually grow. And you could do the same thing with the scallion. Incorporate the scallion inside of the callaloo bed. Come on, come finish plant, man. So you're going to put one here. Remember, we do the triangle form. So put one here. Alright. Alright, so Jordan, you're a big farmer now, man. And the process for you to get involved in agriculture, it starts here from home. That's where my personal experience come from. It started at home, where I used to plant my little backyard, you know, and I used to reap my callaloo and pop choy, right? But we have, the thing is that now the home is not balanced unless you have a mixture, a variety of stuff, right? So we have a little tomato, we have some hot pepper, we have some cucumbers. But what we're actually going to do though, I call it spot planting. So Jordan, we're going to do some spot planting. We're going to plant just the tomatoes in holes that look like basins. Alright? And then remember, we spoke about crops that are of the same family. The tomato and the sweet pepper and the hot pepper, they're of the same family, so we recommend that people plant these crops within the same space. You don't have tomato over the east and sweet pepper on the west. Right? You need to have all of the crops of the same family in the same space. Alright? So you can plant your tomato. I must say thank you for being a part of the Say Yes to Fresh Backyard Garden Style campaign. And this is something that we want all of Jamaica to participate in. And I want us all to have, as usual, a peaceful, productive, blessed and constructive day. God richest blessing on you all.
I hope that was a very educational truth, that you have learned something from it. Thank you for joining us again, and I really appreciate the fact that the farmers and the householders take time out to try and learn something, you know, because a lot of persons have been planting these crops or these vegetables for years, and they have limited knowledge in relation to the whole care and management, you know. And as we try to get the youngsters, the children involved now, you know, because they said when you have idle hands, you know what idle hands can do. So we want them to be involved so that they can actually see some of the things that they're eating, they actually grow it themselves. You know, so before we even go into our discussion, we're going to ask Jordan to assist us with the planting of some callaloo in a container. And we're going to use the same method where we actually use the color, but we plant the scallion with the color. We have done it with the cabbage. So we're actually going to do it now with the color. All right, so Jordan, just follow me over to the corner where we have the container, and we see where we go from there. Well, Jordan, as usual, we have to know, so we have to have the required tools, right? For farm, first, need our seedling, and as you we have wet core, so that come out of the tree. And we have our scallion that we're going to use for intercrop. And as I said, the scallion can be used for the scallion can be used for as a means of repellent, but it's not a repellent for our insects, right? But the next thing about it is that the persons are also that they can, like your mother though, the plant the color with the scallion. Not really work about getting the scallion color because she actually can read a scallion from within the color. All right, so we're going to plant now the so we're going to plant 4 color in this container. All right. And the thing is that for you to want it to be so uniform, you don't want it to plant and coming down, you want them to go into a triangle. Camera. All right. This is what you can right? As far as can have like vegetable seedling that can actually purchase here, you know? Yes, and although I made mention of RADA St. Andrew, one of our main sponsor, Evergrow, is also producers of seedling, good quality seedling. So you can actually go there if RADA St. Andrew don't have, Evergrow will be able to supply. Jordan, after well, we're going to continue process. So we're going to clean up the scallion. Remember, I said you have to, we're going to separate, right? We have 2 plants. We're going to plant one in between, so in between the middle of the triangle. Yes. Plant. Yep. First one. First one. Right. Next one. Right. And then you know, say after planting is done, you actually use some water. It is normally advisable for us to actually for transplanting in the evening, late evening, or early morning. Because you know when the sun is hot, the plants have a way to fail or want to sleep. So we encourage persons to actually do the transplanting either early morning when it's very, very cool or late afternoon when the sun is going down. All right, so we're going back on set to have our discussion. And I think this discussion is about food safety and food security. And it's a topic that have been on the lips of many Jamaicans because the COVID-19 situation have, I mean, really opened our eyes to know that we have to produce what we eat. As the logo says, eat what you grow and grow what you eat, you know? and we cannot overemphasize the importance. But from your division, could you tell us what your division is all about and the role that you play in food security?
All right. My division is what I call a plant health and food safety unit. So what our unit does is really coordinate the whole food safety activity, plants health activity. Well, among the farmers, but that is through the extension officers, right? So when you talk about food safety now, we push that a lot because we know the whole issue of foodborne disease and how that can affect people from different nations. We also export crops, so we try to do as best as possible, especially when it comes to pesticide uses, to ensure that we use pesticide.
And this is not only for export crops, but even for local consumers. We have to ensure that persons know when is the withdrawal period from using these chemicals so that you can reap to actually go directly into the market or the supermarket. Because a lot of persons don't really understand at least they don't really read the label, of these chemicals that they're actually using so that they will know the withdrawal period, So the concept of the ministry in putting a lot of emphasis on this is so important. And you can speak for the fact that if there's traceability of chemicals in a shipment, what could happen to a shipment?
Yeah, that can severely affect our export opportunities and also eventually our farmers. So we, as much as possible, don't want to detect any pesticide residue on our crops or export crops. We at RADA, what we do again, we create what we call for specific crops MRL listing. So what this consists of the name of the chemical, the specific crop that it can be used, and pest that it will target, the PHI, the post-harvest interval that you speak about earlier, so that withdrawal period, so the farmer know exactly when he can, reap, he or she can reap the crop after applying pesticide. And also, if they should apply pesticide, there's other things that they can do.
All right, we speak about farmers, but what about our householders? Because we have a serious issue with our householders in relation to buying certain chemicals, right? We realize that a lot of people have been talking about white flies, right? And they have a tendency to mix the white fly, or there's some misunderstanding with white fly comparing to enzyme scale, right? And we spoke to it before, saying that it's not all the chemicals that can treat one pest will treat the other, right? In relation to food safety, what sort of recommendation you can be given to our householder in relation to the chemicals that they actually use?
Well, in terms of chemical, again, we have we have different classes of chemicals. So let's say from class 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they are basically in raw manual. You will see that they're chemical. Well, the lower one, like one, usually is more toxic than say the one at 4. And again, you might see the color coding.
Yes.
Right. So on it, you might see the green. The green indicate more environmentally friendly and things like that. You might see the blue. Again, that's not as toxic as the one with the yellow. And then you might go up to the red. The red will mean
the red is really the problem,
And again, you might add the skull symbol again here that indicate that this is a really dangerous chemical. And also again, if it's flammable, right? So those usually, a gardener, farmer like might think that as a term, the better the chemical, the more things it might kill more effectively kill the pesticide. But the truth is, less toxic chemical can also do
damage to the system. Yeah, and that is why the unit is so important because the unit have to really put some emphasis on the whole security, food security, you know, and we have to ensure that we are carrying out the right practices. And that is why we also try to put some emphasis on IPM, integrated pest management, where we talk about the whole crop rotation and planting crops that have resistance and using pheromones and stuff like that. From your unit, that you encourage our arts farmers to practice.
Yeah, most definitely. Because what we encourage in all cases is that the chemical result should be final and last. So the best practice that you does crop care activity, you know, basically start from, you know, when you are preparing the land. You mentioned earlier about the healthy seedlings. So you get all of that and do your best practices, weed management, weed control, the crop rotation. Yeah, those all when you incorporate those. Yeah. As I said, the integrated pest management that help to reduce pests that you might have. So in essence, what you do is create an environment that is ideal for the crop to grow, but less ideal for the pest.
Yeah, and that is why it is so important for us to really know some of these practices, we call it good agriculture practices, and we cannot overemphasize the importance of these. We realize, for example, we're in the mango season, right? We're now in the mango season, and a lot of people have been calling in saying why them have worm in their mango, and every time the mango bear worm and worm. And we are saying to these persons, listen man, when the mango fall from the tree, because a lot of people the mango fall and they don't really move it or them allow it to stay. Yeah. We say once the mango fall from the tree, the possibility is that you may have a mature larvae inside of the fruit. And that larvae will stay there and pupate into the soil. And then what happens is that for the new crop that is going to come on, the new season, then they will emerge again, and then you find. So so we have to ensure that once we have fallen fruits, and not only mango, it goes for all the fruits. You know, we ensure that we secure and package them properly and dispose of them.
Right. Yeah. So all that is very important. As you say, field sanitation. What we do, we call it field sanitation. Yeah. Exactly. Or keep the field well. As you say, keep the field for the crop development and less for the pest.
Yeah. All right. We're talking about backyard garden, right? You realize is that a lot of the householders, once they clean up the space, they have a lot of stones that them pack up all over the place. They have shrubs and sticks, you know, and once you do that, they have a tendency to say, boy, slugs. But the thing is that you actually create a natural habitat for these pests. You know, so one of the recommendations is to try to reduce as much the rubble that you would normally have in your space. You know, and we have to make sure that our clients really know that so many times we can create our preventative measures. We don't really want to have a cure practice. We want to have a preventative thing. So we try to ensure that whatever you'll be doing, it is not for cure, but it's to prevent. You know, and that is why we talk about the food security and safety, though, because we don't want when the time comes, we have no food to eat, or we can't send anything overseas.
Yeah,
you know,
or we can't find enough ourselves either.
Yeah. So we have to ensure that we are doing the necessary practice.
And as you mentioned about the whole slugs and like for the householders. Yes, the they might want to say create compost with some of those materials that that is compostable. Probably say those that's compostable, you can use that to create some area maybe they can put the soil in it, like rocks and so forth, and utilize those so they don't have those insect or pests hiding in those areas. Because some of the time, those insect or organisms are not really pests at that time, but because of the activities that we carry there, turn them into what they call pests. Like pest is basically a social term. Like
Yeah. So Jordan, would you know what is your take on the whole situation with guard?
Well, there's a lot of good side, like when you finish cropping or when you finish fertilizing, but also the bad sides of the pest and how you have to manage the area. Like you can't put a crop in an area where there's a lot of pests. But at the end of the day, or when you finish farming, there's going to be a lot of pests that is going to prevent the crop from being at the best it can be.
Okay, so that is one of the reasons why we also encourage crop rotation. So we don't plant back crops that is of the same family in the same space. You know, so for example, I see a plant some callaloo and some cabbage and scallion in the field, right? So the next time around now, and we always tell people if you take out a leafy vegetable, you put in like a legume crop because once you put in a legume crop, you also increase the soil fertility because it is a nitrogen fixed crop. You know, all of these legume crops like a red peas, a string bean, you know, these crops now will also not only reduce your pest, but they will also increase the soil fertility. They also, so the thing about it, we want to ensure that not only you, but youngsters like yourself, because I'm telling you, this is one aspect of when you reach a certain age where you're going to do all your SBA, right? Your SBA from doing these things now, you actually start the practices from now, you know, and you start to be involved because I always tell people, them have a tendency to say, boy, agriculture is the people who don't really have no work by education. Now, man, the brightest set of people on earth is farmers. And don't get me wrong, the brightest set of people on earth is farmers because they are the greatest science. They have the greatest knowledge in relation to the earth, the activities of the sun, the activities of the moon. And them can tell you about when the water table is high from when it's low. Them can tell you when insects will be more prevalent and when they are not. You know, so the thing about it is that we must not really put down agriculture because it is what is sustaining us. You know, when the father created heaven and earth, the first two career and that is farming, the man who raised the animal and the one who do the crops.
yeah,
You know, and it shows that the importance of it is so much. Is the first thing the father does. You know, the first career. So Jordan, so you think being a part of this would impact you to encourage other young people to get involved?
Yes, because as I said that mother can call you rather than go take out the cabbage and at the back.
Yeah.
That's like something fun because when you're farming, some people might say boring, but the process is going to take long, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, man, and you're not only going to have fun from it, you know, but you also be learning from it, you know, and that is the key. The whole concept of it is to learn and not you're not going to learn about how the plant growing up, but it also can help you to realize, listen, man, just like all the plants require X, Y, and Z to survive, then I as an individual have to put some of these practices in place so that I can also survive. You know?
one of the more applied science course actually see what you do. You control basically, well, you can control the environment here. But you can almost as close as possible predict that this will be the result, and you get the result as close as possible.
Yeah. So true.
There's one that really.
Yeah, and then you're in a position where you can do the necessary modification, you know, to ensure. But with earlier when we were talking about the whole environment and we cannot none of the program cannot go through without us talking about the environment. It's just so important that we talk about the whole climate change and climate smart activity. And I always say it that I will never stop saying it. See, when I was very, very small, I hear people always say, boy, when you have a child born, you must get a navel string and go plant a tree. Plant a tree, plant a fight or something like that. Right? And then when people are talking about boundaries, land boundaries,
Then
Yeah.
either use some fruit trees or then use some timber or lumber to mark out them boundaries, you know?
Yeah, I can't say even here they might have a relative that it passed before your time. I can say, well, Master John did plant a tree the right year so,
Yeah.
and when you come now, you see the harvest that you are reaping from it now, and you might dedicate yourself to say, all right, I have to plant another tree for the next generation.
Definitely. That's all we need to put the emphasis on. And we talk about a lot of houses that are now going up. They keep going up and up and up. And that is where the vertical farming will have to come into play. You know, that is where the vertical farming. But what we are also going to encourage persons from the urban areas and even into the rural areas. Just like in the past, man. If you are past and you see a tree on the a sucker on the road, you take it up and go plant it.
Yeah.
Right? Take it up and go plant it. Because that is why we are where we are today in relation. We can get a mango from a Bombay tree or a breadfruit tree because this is not what we are actually done. This is what was done by our parents in the past and others in the past. And Jordan, you're young enough. So I am going to give you a charge, you know, and the charge that I'm going to give you is that for every year, you must plant a fruit tree. Yeah, man. Because this will start a college tree.
Yeah.
So from these fruit trees, you can actually start to earn some of your money to offset the expense for you going to college. You know, so it is very important for us to get the youngsters involved, plant a tree for them, and give them a tree, say this is your tree, you must nurture this tree, you must take care of this tree. This is your future. And not only your future, but it is also the future of the whole nation, the whole country, and the whole world, because you're planting a tree. Okay? So
as I did have the whole Chinese saying said the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
yeah,
But the next best time, no.
yeah, but the next time is like no. Okay.
No.
All right, so we have some questions from social media. The first is, apart from chemical, what can you do to control or reduce the whitefly population?
All right.
From chemical.
No, the thing about it, you got to answer a question, but let me tell you, the thing about it, as we say, people have to know what is whitefly from enzyme scale. That's the first thing, because what happened is that I don't know why people always mix up the whitefly with the enzyme scale, right? The enzyme scale is normally from croutons and stuff like that.
A little bigger in size and more of a cotton like coating over the surface. So in most time, chemical difficult to control them because it have to get under the coating, and that cuticle is very difficult to penetrate. So for that, usually most time, well, we would say wildfire, but then just the end of the enzyme scale, you have to get like your soap water, to try to reduce the
because but what we have to ensure the soap water that you're actually going to use, we don't really want it to have any bleach. So if you can get a liquid soap or even a neem oil, you can use even neem oil. And what that will do, because as it is said, they have a cotton coating, and it's just like they have a sheet. So if a man lays in bed with it and cover up with the sheet, the water that you're going to pour for him now go wet him as fast as when him never no sheet. So you have to ensure that you saturate. That means you get a thorough covering. And it works in the past where a person had used the liquid soap and they get good result. But in relation to the whitefly, though, that is a different.
That's a different one. Well, usually for that you can say person so you can build the whole household pesticide, sometimes pepper, garlic. These are strong enough to say penetrate those soft body insect. So that can also be used.
Okay. And tell us more about where you can get seedlings for purchase.
All right. In relation to good quality seedlings, and you notice we put a lot of emphasis on good quality seedlings. Quality will determine your returns, right?
RADA St. Andrew here. Our number before you come, please call 992-715-7021. Call to find out what we actually have before. We don't want you to leave and come and you don't get what you want. So call before you actually come. And Evergrow. Evergrow can also supply you with good quality seed.
And another question that I am hearing is that right through the process, what chemicals do you use for increased productivity throughout the process from plant to
That is, well, good question in a sense, but in terms of like keeping good quality, as I said, what we encourage is really a IPM approach, integrated pest management. We want to start out say, with good land preparation. As I mentioned earlier, the good quality seedlings, resistant seed variety. All of those help you to create an environment that will keep the pests away. Or if the pest is to come, it will be way after you have harvested your crop. And so those are some of the best practices. Again, field sanitation. If you can go in, because a small backyard garden, you have more time to scout the field. So if a plant have wildfire, you can say, go there, few wildfire and crush those insects.
I can't wait for next week because next week
Next
after
year,
next
yeah.
week, because of course, you know, a holiday weekend coming up. But
Yeah.
week after next, when you're talking about integrated pest management, I'm sure you're going to show some of the
Yes,
pests
one.
and diseases that people can actually relate to,
Identify with,
and
yes.
yes, and they can help with this.
Yeah, a question came in relation to the comparison, in relation to the chemicals and the organic,
Or the
in relation
the
to
organic chemical versus
compared to
the
the toxic one.
toxic chemical or the conventional
Chemical.
chemical. Well, organic chemicals are good. In most cases, they are more friendly to the environment. Usually, those are the one with the green label, low toxicity. So those can safely use on your crop. However, they are still toxic or poisonous. So we encourage farmers, gardeners, if they're gonna use pesticide, whether it be organic or inorganic, use or put on your protective gear.
Yeah. Well, like with me now, I don't really do like the whole for chemical, right? But I try to create my own little mix, where we use the pepper, or we may use some garlic. But you see, the trick about it, when we actually use these things, we can reap it same time I eat it. While and it doesn't matter as far as it's a chemical. They say you have chemicals that you can use today and reap, right?
Yeah.
I personally, I'm not going to tell anybody to do that. Right? What I would recommend is that if it is say that you have a withdrawal period of maybe an hour, I tell you say make it a day. You don't. I would recommend for you to spray now and then. I would rather for you to reap and then you spray.
Yeah.
You know?
As long as it's out of out of that period, as I said, usually when it's based on the testing of the products, they can say well, safely after 5 days or after 7 days, we safely consume product. So even days after that, yeah, it will be well. I would assume it's more safer.
We cannot overemphasize when you purchase these chemicals. Householders, farmers, when you purchase these chemicals, ensure that you read the label.
Yeah.
Read the label. We cannot overemphasize the importance of reading the label, knowing when you have a withdrawal period. Because all right, let me tell you, if maybe a lot of us don't even know, even when we actually spray today, for example, to control our whiteflies, there is a withdrawal period to say that you cannot go into the field the same day.
Yeah, they have what we call re-entry period.
All right.
So again, usually indicate on the label. So you're stressing and reading the label, absolutely important.
And what about neem oil?
Yes, fine. Yeah.
How you utilize it?
Well, the thing is that the neem oil, it works just like how you would have your pepper or your garlic. Some people even the same scale here. You know, the thing is that you can spray it today and you can actually consume. But the thing about it, the neem oil actually does is that as it is more for soft body insects. Right. So most of these natural treatment that we're talking about is mainly for soft body insects. Because we find, and we're going to talk about this in the next series, where you have some black bugs that is affecting like the bungo, you know. And we need to identify what are the beneficial insects separate from those that are not beneficial to us. So for the next series we'll be going into that, right? But we cannot overemphasize the usage of I mean the chemicals that are not too toxic on the environment.
Well,
And as you mentioned it, you mentioned about the beneficial insect. That is one of the real reasons again why we want to use less toxic chemicals. We want the population of the beneficial insect to strive, like a prey mantis, a ladybird, beetle, or some person called a ladybug. So we want to strive because those will feed on
the pests that you
some of the pests like the white fly, aphids, and
I'm not want you put some more emphasis on it. A lot of people have talking about white fly and aphids. Repeat what you say a while ago.
Yeah, the beneficial insect like your the prey mantis, the ladybird, beetle, they usually feed on like your white fly and your aphids that reduce the population. So as much as possible, we want to use less toxic chemical that can preserve these beneficial insects.
So what you're actually saying is that based upon some of the chemicals that we use, we actually kills out the beneficial insects.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't really
want to do that, right?
so what is the proportion to mix? What is the rest of white fly? In terms of, the proportion that you use for your chemicals, so to deal with white fly.
It depends on the type of chemical.
Yeah, it depends on the type of chemical. Because each chemical, will have its label.
Right.
So if a chemical don't have a label, it means that you shouldn't use that chemical. And then we get no more information as it relates to pre-harvest interval or when you should reap after you spray, when you should enter it or whatever food safety you should do.
But there's another thing what a lot of persons must understand also. When you read the label, it also tells the different type of insect that this chemical
that can
have some effect on
you, right?
Okay. Well, this is a very, very fruitful discussion. But what about farmers, who have their acres and acreage of land? I mean, how does this backyard garden series help them? How could they be inclusive and a part of it?
All right. If for example, now a large farmer with Irish potato, no, sweet potato. It's a pity we don't have some salmon, but you normally find some holes when they reap the sweet potato. And that is really that is caused by sweet potato weevil, and of which if you want to minimize the amount of spraying that you actually do, they have a pheromone, right? Sweet potato weevil pheromone,
right,
that you can establish in that field. And I think one of the pheromones supposed to cover what, an acre?
Yeah, you can cover hectare. One can basically cover hectare. But where you want to place it on the side where the wind is coming from, so it starts to go across the field and pull the insect, pull the trap itself. So that is very effective.
Yeah, but you see, I don't know why now. These people invent these things to get rid of all of the meals.
Yeah, it's a method that will say bias more because what it does because it pheromone attract, give off the scent of the female
that she's on it.
Right, so the male tend to come was that.
So and we as male have now tendency to stray.
Yeah, that.
Yes, that is so true. All
And,
right.
and again, to well, just to complete with the chop, those method, that method usually, well, you have to have the water. Well, we usually create it from what we call a 1 gallon jug. We put the wind there. Insert the wire, put the septum and the wire there, hang it over the water, ensure that we have water about maybe 2 inches or so, and ensure that we put some soap in the water. So if when the weevil fall in the liquid, yeah, they will basically drown. Sometimes if you might just have it with the water alone, they might just fall on the surface. Right.
So that is why we put a lot of emphasis on integrated pest management. You know, and we want to ensure that we use as less chemical as possible, but we get good and maximum production from whatever we're doing.
Okay, great. Well, do you have a space for a community garden? And if you do, there you can just start by having a small short proposal telling us why a community garden would help you and help your community to eat better. We ask that you join us on the Instagram and Facebook page for more details on being a part of this community project that Digital Foundation has sponsored. The final date is August 16th, so we're asking you to join us on Instagram and to know more about how you can participate. We'd like to thank our guest today on the Say Yes to Fresh Backyard Garden Style video. We would like to thank all our sponsors to include AgriView, Evergrow Garden Center, yes, and Digital Foundation, along with Skyfall for this amazing decor. We'd like you to join us not next week, but week after next, where we're going to talk about integrated pest management. And we'd like you to start your garden. Start it now if you haven't established yet, okay? And utilize what you learned today in order to improve production and productivity. Bless you and have a good day.